Hello, everyone, and welcome to CRATV, where we talk about politics, policy, and politicians, all from a conservative perspective, right here in the great state of California. So please take a moment, like and share the program, and encourage your friends to do the same. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook or you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure that you hit that notification button. That way you'll be notified as soon as we go live, and you'll be able to participate in the live chat as the program is taking place. Also want to remind each and every one of you, we are a membership organization. That's right. We are the largest and fastest growing Republican volunteer organization in the state of California. And we are dedicated to electing conservatives, pro-life, pro-family, limited government, low-tax conservatives to elective office. In fact, we've been showing you, last week I showed you one video that we had that talks about just a couple of the things that we stand for. Well, here's another join video that will let you know a little bit more about what CRA stands for. So what you see there is, once again, it tells you a little bit about what we here at CRA stand for. That's not by any means everything, but we want to give you guys a flavor. And by the way, that would be a pretty long video if we included every single line item that we agreed with. So anyway, just want to give you a chance. We'll be showing more of those videos as time goes on. But here's the most important part. The important thing is that, as the video said, there is no we without you. So it's important for you to become a member. I always like to say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Don't be part of the problem. Become a member today. Click on the join link in the description to this video. Also, want to encourage you, visit our Take Action page. Folks, there are a number of pieces of legislation that are moving right now. A key bottleneck, a great place to kill bad legislation is in Appropriations Committee. And there are a number of very, very bad bills that the Democrats are trying to push through that are on the suspense file. And that suspense file is going to be heard next week. So it's vitally important that you get your emails in on those measures today. All you got to do, follow the Take Action link in the description of this video. It'll take you to our Take Action page. You'll see all of the bills and you can read them. You can find out what they're about. You can find out where they're at. Most, like I said, most of which are in the Assembly or Senate Appropriations Committees. And you can send a message. There's already a message there. It's pre-written out for you, or you can type your own message. But once again, let them know that you oppose these very, very bad bills. Take action today. Finally, I want to encourage you guys, take a moment and support our candidates, right? We have a number of really, really good candidates, and we are really going out of our way for the candidates that we support. Our number one reason for existing is to help elect conservatives, right? So what we wanted to do was, we have a number of things that are going to be going on. We have a couple of events that are going to be going on. One this Friday, one on one's going to be taking place on the following Monday, and then one later in the week. The whole goal is to promote our statewide candidates, and they're going to help promote the local candidates that are endorsed by the California Republican Assembly. Matter of fact, we have a video that you can find on our Facebook page or on our Instagram channel or on our Twitter page. We want to encourage you to share it. Here, check it out, and let me know if this inspires you to vote for conservative candidates. That's right, folks. Those are all of our statewide candidates. Now, here's the thing. A list of all of those candidates is once again on our endorsements page. If you just go to our website, you can find not just the statewide candidates, but you'll also find the congressional candidates or candidates for the U.S. House of Representatives. You'll also find state legislative candidates, and you'll also find local candidates. That's right, those running in your city or your county or local school board. So please take a moment, go there, find out who to vote for in your area, find out who the like-minded conservatives really are. So take a moment and do that. A link to that page is once again in the description to this video. All right, let's get into today's topic. I got to tell you, it's been one of the most frustrating things to see over the last week. And with everything that went on, with in particular, the shooting that took place in Buffalo, New York, there's been a lot of calls and a lot of issues. And you know me, you guys know I'm a gun guy. You know all the calls for gun control have not necessarily sat well with me. But something much more sinister has been put forward, and it didn't even take 24 hours for them to start pushing a particular narrative. And the narrative had to do with, it started, quite frankly, it wasn't just the president who started it, but he's one of the main people who've been pushing this particular narrative. And it has to do with this concept of replacement theory. And if you have any doubt that the president is one of the big proponents of people who are pushing this as trying to tie conservatives to replacement theory and thus blame them for what happened in Buffalo, New York, here's a video with a few of the comments of what he had to say.
The hate that through the media and politics, the internet, has radicalized, angry, alienated, lost, and isolated individuals into falsely believing that they will be replaced, that's the word, replaced, by the other. And I condemn those who spread the lie for power, political gain, and for profit.
So now, once again, he's promoting this theory. And by the way, he's not the only one, because there are a number of different folks, including folks, for example, on MSNBC.
And I want to be very clear about this. White supremacy is a systems project. It is very tempting to individualize this. It is very tempting to call this simply a tragedy. We're already seeing these mental illness narratives all over the place. But in truth, radicalization requires books and copycat manifestos, tech platforms, meeting places, political parties, media, and content to develop the kind of people who would go and commit this kind of horror. The system was successful and an entire community is suffering for it. And we need to wrap our arms around that community as we challenge our lawmakers and our leaders to shift the system that continues to create these outcomes.
Let's talk about those lawmakers, let's talk about those leaders, and let's talk about what Brittany describes as a system problem, because it's not just Fox News. You have GOP lawmakers echoing this, quote, great replacement theory, including New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. Back in September, Albany's Times Union editorial board wrote, quote, Stefanik isn't so brazen as to use the slogans themselves. Rather, she couches the hate in alarmist, anti-immigrant rhetoric that's become standard fare for the party of Donald Trump. And she doesn't quite attack immigrants directly. Instead, she alleges that Democrats are looking to grant citizenship to undocumented immigrants in order to gain a permanent liberal majority, or as she calls it, a permanent election insurrection.
Okay, so keep in mind now, they're not the only ones that are perpetuating this. This article came out, oh my Lord, it came out within hours of what happened. I mean, it was literally the very next, this was on the 15th that this came out. So this was the very next day. And it talked about the Buffalo shooter not being a lone wolf, but being a mainstream Republican, basically insinuating that, well, you know, obviously Republicans are pushing this particular narrative right now. Now, mind you, notice how she didn't say in there she actually said those things. She said they're not stupid enough to actually say it. They alluded to it. They worked around it and talked about it, about having to do something largely to do with the issue of, once again, immigration. But folks, this is not something that is new. I mean, anyone who's been around California for any period of time knows that, for example, the issue of Aslan has been something that California Latino politicians or Democratic politicians have been pushing. What's funny about this whole concept that they keep trying to blame on Republicans, what's funny is this is a concept that started with, well, let me go back. Where they say Republicans allude to these things, they're not actually alluding to those things. What they're not alluding to what they're talking about. Now, you want to know who's actually talking about it? It's the Democrat politicians.
We remain a hunted people. Now you think you have a destiny to fulfill in this land that historically has been ours for 40,000 years. And we're a new mestizo nation. This is our homeland. We cannot, we will not, and we must not be made illegal in our own homeland. We are not immigrants that came from another country to another country. We are migrants free to travel the length and breadth of the Americas because we belong here. We are millions. We just have to survive. We have an aging white America. They are not making babies. They are dying. It's a matter of time. The explosion is in our population.
It's not enough to elect Latino leadership. If they're supporting legislation that denies the undocumented, they don't belong in office, friends. They don't belong here.
And those rednecks that are out there making decisions for the betterment of their communities will think twice before they push forward anti-immigrant legislation against our community. You can be as revolutionary as you want. You can be Chicano nationalist. You can believe it. You can believe in the concept of Aztlán. You can believe in the concept of multiculturalism. We don't have to give our lives. We're not at that point. But we can give a little.
Aztlán. Nation of...
Okay, so keep in mind that what we're talking about here is and what they're talking about in this position is they're saying, look, eventually there are going to be more of or people of color than there are going to be whites. And this, by the way, it didn't just stop. And by the way, in case you noticed there was the former mayor he was both the mayor and the former speaker of the California State Assembly. You also had that's Antonio Villaraigosa. You also had Fabian Nunez, who's a former speaker of the California Assembly. These are elected officials who are spouting replacement theory. They're talking about it, but they're not the only ones. I know that video looks kind of old and it seems like they ain't been around for a while, but I'm telling you, they're not the only ones who are talking about it. Check out these folks who are talking about it as well. Tucker talked about this on his show.
You've heard a lot about the great replacement theory recently. It's everywhere in the last 2 days, and we're still not sure exactly what it is. Here's what we do know for a fact. There is a strong political component to the Democratic Party's immigration policy. We're not guessing this. We know this, and we know it because they have said so. They've said it again and again and again. They've written books on it, and monographs, and magazine articles. They've bragged about it endlessly. They talk about it on cable news constantly. And they say out loud, we are doing this because it helps us to win elections. That's not something they've said once. It's something they've gloated about again and again and again. And we think that's wrong. And in case you doubt us, here they are.
Blue wave is African American. It's white, it's Latino, it's Asian Pacific Islander. It is made up of those who've been told that they are not worthy of being here. It is comprised of those who are documented and undocumented.
In a couple of presidential cycles, you'll be on election night. You'll be announcing that we're calling the 38 electoral votes of Texas for the Democratic nominee for president. It's changing. It's going to become a purple state and then a blue state because of the demographics.
The demographics of America are not on the side of the Republican Party. The new voters in this country are moving away from them, and instead they're moving to be independents or to even vote on the other side.
An unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock.
Okay, so, and by the way, that's by the way, was the vice president then. The president now, who is once again spouting replacement theory. Now, once again, you don't hear Republicans complaining about this. You don't hear, and by the way, they never come up with instances where Republicans, elected officials, or Tucker Carlson or anybody has talked about Latinos or people of color, them becoming the majority and being worried and concerned about it. You just don't see it. But once again, you do see the left talking about it. For example, Ana Navarro here. Tucker talked about this on his show. In a piece called Old White Straight Male Voters Ain't What They Used to Be, right? This is what she had to say. The demographic trends that show that the minority vote in the United States will continue to grow in numbers and influence unless you are under influence of hallucinogens. She goes on to say it's hard to imagine the future scenarios where the Republican Party can win national elections. Once again, their whole goal is to, as Tucker says, to gain political power by appealing to people of color, by saying, well, these new people that are coming into the country and people of color are not going to vote Republican. So our whole goal is to replace white voters, straight white male voters, with these particular voters, right? Even Politico, in a piece, they wrote that immigration proposal pending in Congress would transform the nation's political landscape for a generation or more, pumping as many as 11 million new Hispanic voters into the electorate a decade from now in ways that, if current trends hold, would produce an electoral bonanza for Democrats and cripple Republican prospects for many states that they now easily win. Even the Center for American Progress, once again, a left-wing group, this is once again as far back as 2013, said supporting real immigration reform that contains pathways to citizenship for our nation's 11 million undocumented immigrants is the only way to maintain the level of electoral strength in the future. And here's another one. Now, this is a piece that was in the New York Times called We Can Replace Them. Right now, America is tearing itself apart as embittered white conservative minority clings to power, terrified that being swamped by a new multiracial polyglot majority. Folks, this is the stuff that they're promoting. These are the words from their own mouth. Now, this sounds exactly like what they're talking about. Now, I got to believe one of two things, right? Either you're just spouting off at the mouth, Or you really believe this stuff. Liberals, the left, and the media really believe this stuff. But somehow it became, a replacement theory became a white racist theory. Let me clarify. A white nationalist Republican talking point or theory. That's what they would have you, to believe. Even Joe Scarborough, right? A former Republican, even he said Democrats underperformed in congressional races and state legislative contests. At the same time, the weeping and gnashing of teeth over these failures obscure more permanent reality. Trumpism accelerated the damage done by demographic changes that will harm Republicans for years. And once again, he noted, he says demographics is destiny. So once again, he's pointing to these demographics, these racial demographics, and saying, these racist Republicans, people of color will not vote for Republicans. So that's our goal. We're going to try and elect these folks. Even this is a Jennifer Rubin, a liberal blogger. Even she said, a more diverse and inclusive society. This is fabulous news. Now we need to prevent minority white rule. So the people who are making it all about race are not conservatives or specifically white conservatives who are in power now. Where? Certainly not in DC, although hopefully that will change in the upcoming election season. But for the most part, what they're saying is they're not the ones that are concerned about race. No, who are the ones who are interested in fighting a race war? That's right, liberals. The left are pushing the race war. This is a theory that is their theory. They created it. And now they don't want to own it. I mean, so why is this such a big deal, right? Why is this such an important thing? And I have that as a graphic up right now, but I think it's important for you to understand what Republicans are in fact concerned about. And what they're concerned about, quite frankly, well, it has to do with, it has to do with, once again, the changing demographics. And I'm not the changing demographics, but the changing in culture and policies. If you read this article here that is written by the Associated Press, what's interesting about it is that all of the things that they talk about here in this particular article, and this was an AP article, what they're talking about here in this article is they're talking about the change in terms of immigration, right? The impact that immigration is having on our nation. And by the way, if you don't believe that we're having an issue with immigration, let's just look last fiscal year. This was from back in October 2021. They had noted that 1.7 million. They say migrants, but the migrants or illegal immigrants were arrested at the border. And that doesn't even include the somewhere around 700,000 or more that got through. Though that doesn't include the ones that we don't even know about, that we don't even know where they're at or what happened. They were not stopped or contained by federal authorities. And by the way, it hasn't stopped. Because if you look here, now this is an article that just came out, right? It says that we saw more than 234,000 migrants or illegal immigrants, right, trying to cross the border into the United States in April. That's a new high. And by the way, folks, the high, just like with inflation, keeps going up. It keeps going up. Now, think about this. We had 1.7 million last fiscal year. Chances are we're going to see probably at least 2.4 to 2.5 million this fiscal year. So what does that mean? That means a fundamental change in not just the look of the country, but the culture of the country. And that's what a lot of these Republicans were referring to and that they were concerned about. Because let's just be real, the social justice theory, the social justice crowd is pushing and is actively working to change the culture of this country. Let me tell you something. A nation is defined by language, culture, and borders, right? We already know, we've already determined that we've already seen the attack on English being whether or not it is actually the official language of the United States. But the whole point of having a common language is so that we can all communicate one with another, right? No matter where you go, no matter what country you're in, there generally tends to be a common tongue so that people from different places within that country, within that community, within that culture can communicate. They have one common language, right? Culture are the things that make up. The culture is nothing more than the ways in which the beliefs, the values upon which we all agree that we're going to work together, right? These are the ways in which we're going to work together. Well, it's almost impossible to have the number of people both entering into your country, right? Large numbers of people entering into your country without it affecting your culture. But when you have within it an intelligentsia, a media, a political party known as the Democratic Party that is hell-bent on changing the culture of your society, undermining the culture of that society, well, then you're going to have a problem. All right? This right here, and I want to take you to this. I want to take you to this particular website. Where's it at? Okay, so this website right here is done by the Smithsonian. This is the National Museum for African American History and Culture, right? And in their conversation about race, I want to make one thing very clear. They don't talk about all races. They talk about, in this particular part, they talk about one race in particular, and that's white people, right? The whole goal of this particular piece, of this particular thing, is to, well, undermine being white, right? Just go down here and you scroll down here and you start to look through the stuff that they have here, and you come up against this. In this country, American means white. Everybody else has to hyphenate. Now, first of all, I'll just tell you that, I'm sorry, I didn't even show you the site. There's the site. Okay, so this is the Talk About Race. That's where it's from. They're talking about whiteness. And down here, you have this quote here from Toni Morrison. It says, in this country, American means white. Everybody else has to hyphenate. Now, this is vitally important for you to understand, because what they're saying is that the values that this country has are based on, or the American values are based on whiteness. All right? So if it's based on whiteness, and so therefore, if you follow those values, well, then you have white privilege, right? If you happen to be white and you follow those values. Now, if you happen to be a person of color and you follow those values, well, then, I'm sorry. Whites, by the way, the advancement of those values and principles happens to be white supremacy, right? That's what an ideology where they believe white people to be superior to non-white people. But what they're saying is, or what's going on here is, it's the values that they don't want, right? That's the thing. The values are the things that they are trying to undermine, right? And if you buy into those values, well, then you have been, what's the word they like? You have internalized dominance, right? Or you have internalized racism, right? That's the perspective. That's the thing that they're trying to push. So they're trying to undermine the culture of our nation. Now, let's be real. This is an issue. This is a major issue, folks, because let me show you what they believe the culture of whiteness is, right? This is what they believe whiteness is. Now, take a look at this. Now, these are aspects of whiteness, right? Aspects of whiteness. Rugged individualism. The individual as the primary unit. Self-reliance. Independence and autonomy are highly valued and rewarded. Individuals assumed to be in control of their environment, right? Family structure. The nuclear family. Mother, father, children, right? Emphasis on scientific methods. Objective, rational, linear thinking, right? Cause and effect relationships. Quantitative analysis, right? Oh, what about this? The Protestant work ethic. Hard work is the key to success, right? Work before play. Going over here to religion. They want to undermine the Judeo-Christian principles and values of our country. You saw in the Join video. That is something that is vitally important to vitally important to our nation, right? All of these things. Undermining English as a language. All of these things are the things in which they seek to undermine. So when you want to know, when we talk about we're concerned about things being replaced, we don't care. Republicans, and I'm going to say even including white Republicans, they don't care about the color of the people. What they care about are the values, right? They don't want those values that we just talked about, the valuing of hard work, of logic and critical thinking, of traditional, of family values and honoring the family unit, which, by the way, every study out there has ever shown that the best overall, best in general, best family unit for the family is intact mother, father, children, family. Period. There is no study that tells you anything different. But that is considered white culture, right? So they're saying that we need to get rid of white culture by getting rid of white people. So we need to replace white culture with what? Right? With what? Well, with the culture of some of the nations where folks are coming from. Now, I will just say this, and here's the thing. All right? I don't live in Mexico. I've visited Mexico, love it. But guess what? There's a reason why people are trying to come from Mexico to here, right? There's a reason why. Because being like Mexico hasn't worked out real well for Mexico. In fact, being like many of the third world nations in our southern hemisphere or south of the United States hasn't worked out so well for them, right? But the people who've come here, who have latched on to those values that we were just talking about, those very American values, the ones that they claim to be identify a part of white culture, those values, those people who've, didn't matter the race, doesn't matter how much English they spoke. If they latched on to those values, they have been successful. And that, my friends, is what they want to undermine. See, they don't want free market enterprise. They don't want you to be successful, because here's the thing. If you are successful, right? If you have the ability to be able to take care of yourself and not rely on the government, if you have the ability to think for yourself and not depend on the media or academia, if you have the ability to be self-governing, then guess what? You don't need the government. You don't need the mainstream media, and you don't need the academic intelligentsia. That, my friends, is what they're trying to do. They're trying to replace America, as they have said quite often. If you follow Marxism, if you follow Saul's Rules for Radicals, if you follow Black Lives Matter, you know that their goal is to tear down every structure we have and to turn this place into their quote-unquote communist, socialist, social justice utopia. And well, I think if you're like me, you know, every other place that it has been tried, it hasn't worked out so well. So when people start talking to you about replacement theory, let me just remind you real quick. Number one, we're not the ones talking about a race war. Democrats are. They're the ones pushing the race war. We're standing up for American values, not white values, not Western values, American values, the values upon which this nation was founded and have kept us great. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's show. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. Please remember, if you're not already a member, become a member of the California Republican Assembly. We are the conscience of the Republican Party. You guys take care.